Hello, sports fans. It's me, Sportsman Z, and I'm here today with Game 2 of the 1978 Alternate World Series between the Dodgers and the Kansas City Royals. Just a quick recap. The Royals are here because the Boston Red Sox actually won the one-game playoff against the Yankees in my Alternate World playoffs for 1978. And then the Red Sox went on to actually lose to Kansas City in the ALCS, which put Kansas City here playing the Dodgers instead of, as it wasn't actual in real life, the New York Yankees. So Kansas City won game one, so they're up 1-0, and I have a video out for that, so if you haven't seen that, I suggest you go watch that. But this is game 2, and the pitchers today will be for the Kansas City Royals will be Paul Splittorff going in game 2, and for the LA Dodgers it will be Bert Hooton, and there's Bert Hooton's card. And there's, in case you can't see all of it. So, without any further delay, let's get started. The helmets are back. I forgot to put the helmets out for last game. But I am going with the less elaborate setup. If you remember some of the playoffs, I had like a huge rollout mat of a baseball park, and I had, at one point, I even had plastic baseball players out there, but that was all a little too elaborate, so now I'm going back to the basics. And Willie Wilson will lead off, and he gets a 3-8 to lead off the game, and that's a single. So there's a base hit allowed immediately by Bert Hooton. Single for Wilson, and as he has in the past, he will try to steal second, and he does make it. So now we have a man at second, and no out still, and that brings up Amos Otis, and he gets a 1-4, which is a ground ball pitcher B. So that's going to be 1 out. And Wilson won't go anywhere. 1-3. And that brings up George Brett. George Brett gets a 2-3, which is a ground ball second base A. So that's 2 outs, and Wilson will hold. And that brings up Hal McRae, and he gets a 5-10 on Hooton's card, which is a catcher card X, and the catcher is Steve Yeager, and he's a 1, and that's a 10. 10-1 at catcher is out on dribbler. So no runs score, and he's out 2-3 for Kansas City in the first, and it's we go to the bottom of the first with the score: Kansas City 0, LA coming to bat. And that brings up Davey Lopes to lead it off, as he usually does. 4-12 on Splittorff is a fly ball right field B. So that's a fly out to 9. Bill Russell comes up. He gets a 5-2, which is a fly out right field. So that's 2 recorded outs for Cowens. And Reggie Smith comes up, and he gets a 5-8, and that's a pop out to first. Pop out to 3. So LA goes very quickly, and we have a 0-0 game going into the bottom of the second inning, or the top of the second inning. And Darryl Porter comes up, and he's got a 5-6 on Hooton, which is a single. Porter with a hit. Hit given up by Hooton. Porter's an E stealing, so he'll stay there, and Cowens is a 4-10, which is a pop out to first base. Pop out to 3. That brings up Frank White, who was big in yesterday's game, and he gets a 3-7, which is a ground ball pitcher B, or ground ball third base B. So 2 away, and this 5-3. Or wait, 5-4. Yeah, 5-4 fielder's choice. Now with White there, he's a B, but they're not going to go. Not with 2 outs. And that brings up Clint Hurdle, and he gets a 2-8, which is a ground ball shortstop A. 6-3. And Kansas City comes away with nothing in the second. Brings up Ron Say. And he gets a 4-11 on the off of Splittorff's card, and that's a fly ball left field X. And the left fielder is Wilson, and he's a 2. That's a 3. That's going to be something. 3 and 2 is a safe at second on error. So Say gets to second base on an E7, and that's an error on Wilson. And Steve Garvey's up. He gets a 1-6, which is a home run 1-8 or a double. And that's going to be a double that drives in a run. And so he scores a run. And he gets an RBI. Well, no, he doesn't really get an RBI because it was an on by an error. So that's not even... that is a hit allowed, but it's not an earned run on Splittorff. And... or does he get an RBI? I don't know, I'll look that up. But what we do have is a 1-0 lead for the Dodgers, and Rick Monday up. And if you'll notice, I don't usually sacrifice, and that's because I'm not a big fan of the sacrifice. So I won't usually do that anyway, and in this case, it actually worked out in the Dodgers' favor that I didn't do it. Monday is up, and he gets a 4-10 on Splittorff, which is a ground ball shortstop. The shortstop is Freddie Patek, and he's a 2. That's an 18. And that's an out 3, so that's really just 1 out. And the runner holds. 6-3. Brings up Lee Lacy, and Lee Lacy gets a 5-7 on Splittorff's card. That's a pop out to short. So he pops out to 6. And then that brings up Steve Yeager, and Steve Yeager gets a 3-6, which is a pop out to third. Pop out to 5. And 1 run comes in for the Dodgers. And it's an unearned run because he was there on an error. And then that brings up Freddie Patek to lead off the top of the third. And he gets a 1-10, which is a ground ball shortstop A. So 6-3, 1 away. Willie Wilson gets a 3-7, which is a walk. And Willie Wilson, again, he is on first base with nobody ahead of him on second, so he will try for second, and he does make it. And that's his 3rd or 4th stolen base, I think, this series, and second this game with Amos Otis up, and he gets a 6-8, which is, on Hooten's card, a pop out to short, and that's 2 away. Pop out to 6. And that brings up George Brett, and he gets a 3-8, which is a ground ball shortstop A. 6-3. So Kansas City, despite getting a man on second base, does not get him in, and so they don't get the tying run. With Dusty Baker coming up in the bottom of the third to lead off the bottom of the third, he gets a 5-8 on Splittorff, which is a pop out to first. Pop out to 3. That brings up Davey Lopes. Davey Lopes gets a 4-7, which is a single. Splittorff giving up his second hit, and he is a double-A, so he'll also try to go, and he also does make it. then that brings up Bill Russell with 1 out and a man at second, and that's a 4-9, which is a fly ball center field B on Splittorf. Fly out to 8, and that brings up Reggie Smith with a man at second and 2 outs. And he gets a 2-6, which is a home run. Reggie Smith hits a 2-run homer. Which also knocks in Davey Lopes. So, 2 RBIs and a run scored by him and a run scored by him. And those are earned runs. And then that brings up Ron Say, and he gets a 5-7, which is a pop out to shortstop. Pop out to 6, but the Dodgers get another 2 runs on a Reggie Smith home run, and they take a 3-0 lead now. With Hal McRae coming up, and he gets a 2-7, which is a single 1 to 12. And it is a single for Hal McRae. And he's a B. They're not going to try it right now, at least. Darryl Porter is up with a 110, which is a fly ball right field B, 1 away. Fly out to 9. Al Cowens is up. He gets a 310, which is a single. And it's, let's see, McRae is 1 to 14 running, so they'll just hold him. Another hit given up by Hooten. That's the 4th hit allowed by him. And Frank White comes up, and he gets a 5-8, which is a fly ball to left field B. So 2 away. Fly out to 7. And that brings up Hurdle. And he gets a 5-6, which is a single. And McRae is a running 1 to 14. And they have Patek coming up, so they're going to try to score that run, and they don't get it. It's a 15. Assuming that the center fielder's arm is not a plus anything, which I would doubt that's the case, but that is Reggie Smith, so let's see. No, Reggie Smith is a -3 arm, so definitely they're out. So they get out of the inning. And, yeah. So no runs for Kansas City in the 4th. They were trying desperately to get a run there. They knew that they didn't have a good hitter coming up right with the next batter, so they had to try to do something and to make something happen. Bottom of the 4th, and Steve Garvey will lead off in the bottom of the 4th against Splittorf. He gets a 5-7, which is a pop out to short. Really, Splittorf has not pitched that poorly in this game. In fact, he's kind of pitched almost better than Hooten. Just one mistake. 4-5 is a fly ball center field B. So, Monday flies out to center field. And that brings up Lee Lacy. And Lee Lacy gets a 4-9, which is a fly ball center field B. So fly out to 8. No runs for the Dodgers in the 4th. We go to the top of the 5th. Kansas City looking to try to get 3 runs somewhere at least to tie the game. And Patek leads off. He gets a 6-10 on Hooten, which is a ground ball to 3rd. The 3rd baseman is a 3. That's the Penguin, Ron Say. And 9-3 is an out. So that's 1 away. 5-3. And that brings up Willie Wilson. Willie Wilson's been a thorn in the side of the Dodgers for most of this series. That's a 2-7, which is a ground ball shortstop B. And that brings up Amos Otis, and Amos Otis gets a ground out to third, 5-3. So the Kansas City offense is kind of flat this game. I mean, last game they were really electric, but this game, not so much against Hooten. Steve Yeager comes up and he gets a 4-3, and that's a right field X. The right fielder for the team is Amos Otis, and he's a 2. And 14-2 is an out. So that's a fly out for Yeager. Fly out to 9. Brings up Dusty Baker. Dusty Baker gets a 3-2, which is a line out to third. And then that brings up Davey Lopes, and he gets a 3-5, which is a strikeout. And the first strikeout of the game for either pitcher. So, no runs for LA that inning. And we go to the top of the 6th with George Brett up. He gets a 4-6, which is a walk. George Brett getting on by a walk. He hasn't really had the greatest American League Series or even so far World Series, really. And that brings up Hal McRae. And Hal McRae gets a 1-2, which is a walk also. So Hooten walks the first 2 guys in the 6th inning for Kansas City. Puts himself in a little bit of trouble when he really, up until now, was on cruise control with Darrell Porter coming up and no outs. And he gets a 1-10, and 1-10 is a fly ball right field B. So that's 1 away. Fly out to 9. Runners hold. Al Cowens gets a 6-12 on Hooten, which is a line out to first base. That's 2 away. And Kansas City continuing their difficulties here with men in scoring positions. 4-5 is a fly ball center field B for Frank White, and he is out. And again, no runs in the 6th. The game is cruising right along because we're not getting any kind of offense from Kansas City, and we're only getting a little bit of offense, really, from the Dodgers. And Bill Russell comes up, and he gets 4-10, and that's a shortstop. The shortstop for Kansas City is a 2. 9-2 is probably an out. And it isn't. No. That's a one-base error. So, one base error for Bill Russell. He gets on by an E6. We got to give that to Patek. And that brings up, with 1 man on and no outs, that brings up Reggie Smith. Reggie Smith, who had the earlier homer, and hey, may have another one. Home run 1-8 or a double. And that is the second home run of the game for Reggie Smith. And the second 2-run homer, not to mention, for Reggie Smith. And he scores a run, knocks in 2 more, and the run is Russell. Splittorff gives up another hit, but only another earned run, not 2, because he was on by an error. And that brings up Ron Say. Ron Say gets a 5-4 on Splittorff, which is a catcher, and he's a 1. And that's a 1, which is a strikeout. Second strikeout for Splittorff. Steve Garvey comes up. He gets a 6-7, which is a second baseman. He's a second base 1. That's an 18, which is probably a roll again. And it is. And that's a 19, and that's a roll again. And that's a 13, which is probably an out, and it is. So 2 away. Garvey out 4-3. And that brings up Rick Monday. And he gets a 2-6, which is a walk. Monday walking. First walk of the game issued by Splittorff. And Lee Lacy steps up and he gets a 4-8, which is a double 1-12. That's a double. So Lacey lacing a double. 5th hit allowed by Splittorf, and that brings up with 2 on and 2 out Steve Yeager, and he gets a 111, which is a line out to the shortstop plus injury. So they're out of the inning, and let's roll for the injury to him, and that's 15. So Yeager is going to miss the rest of the series, folks. We're saying goodbye to Steve Yeager. And coming in to catch, at least right now for him, will be Johnny Oates. And Johnny Oates is a catcher 3. And let's see, just out of curiosity, if they have another catcher. I would imagine they probably do. Yes, they do, Joe Ferguson. But right now, Johnny Oates is the man. He's going to hold it down for right now, and then the Dodgers will have to decide. And that's really the first injury I've had in all of the 78 playoffs that I've done, which is really odd because like I said before in another video, every time I did just a single standalone game, just a random standalone game, I always got an injury. Now that I did the 78, I've been doing the 78 playoffs, this is the first injury at all. So anyway, LA gets no runs there, and we go to the top of the 7th with Clint Hurdle up against Hooten, and he gets a 4-2, which is a line out to second. Line out to 4. Freddie Patek up, he gets a 1-5, which is a ground ball shortstop A, 6-3. And that brings up Willie Wilson, the thorn in the side, 4-7, second base X. His second baseman is a 1. That's a 15. I don't know if that is something. It might. No. Nope, it's an out. So 4-3 because Lopes is a second base 1. So 4-3, and that was the second time that Wilson's been out this game. But Kansas City gets nothing there, and Dusty Baker will be coming up, and Splittorf, his day is done. He went 6, and they will bring in who are they going to bring in? They'll bring in Steve Mingori, I don't know how you pronounce that. So it's up to Mingori to hold them right where they are, and that brings up Dusty Baker, who has other ideas and is trying to get... Oh, wait a minute, did they get 2? They got 2 there. In the 6th, yeah, they did. My mistake. So it is 5-0 LA, and here they are in the bottom of the 7th. And that's a 5-7, which is a ground ball second base. He's a 1, Frank White, and that's an out. So Baker's out. Brings up Davey Lopes. He gets a 2-6, which is a walk. Mingori has allowed his first base runner, and that is Lopes. And that brings up Russell, 3-10, which is a single 1 asterisk. So they got 2 runners on and 1 out. Base hit allowed by Mingori. Smith is up. He gets a 1-7, Reggie Smith, and he walks to load the bases up. So Mingori's in a little bit of trouble. And that brings up Ron Say, and Ron Say gets a 3-9, which is a strikeout. And the worst kind because it doesn't even advance anyone. 2 away. And with Garvey up, that's a 6-7, which is a single double asterisk. Knocks in 2 runs. So he gets 2 RBIs, and those 2 runs are in the persons of Russell and Lopes, who each score another run. And that brings up Rick Monday, and he gets a 3-5, which is a single, which knocks in another run. And that's an RBI. And a run scored by Smith. And third earned run allowed by Mingiori. And Lee Lacy's up, and he gets a 3-8, which is a ground ball, third base B. So I believe that's it. 5-3, but they do get 3. The Dodgers get 3 more and extend their lead now to 7, 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8-0. So at this point, you got to believe that Kansas City is not winning this game. Amos Otis is up. He gets a 4-9, which is a shortstop X. The shortstop is a 3, and that's a 19. 19 and 3 is a roll again. That's a 12. 12 and a 3 is an out. So that's 1 away. Otis with a 6-3. And the Dodgers really needed this kind of a game from Hooten because they did go through, they ravaged their bullpen in game 1. George Brett's up, 5-9, is a strikeout by Hooten. I believe that's his first. Yes, it is his first strikeout of the game. And Hal McRae's up, and he gets a 1-4, which is a line out to third base. Line out to 5. No runs come in for Kansas City in the 8th. Bottom of the 8th. Johnny Oates is up, first at bat of the series, probably first at bat of the postseason even maybe. 5-6 with a strikeout. Strikeout in the 8th. And Mingiori strikes a man out. Dusty Baker's up, that's a 4-3, which is a ground ball first base C. So 4-1. Or 3-1. 3-1. And Davey Lopes gets a 5-11, which is a first base X. First baseman's a 4. That's a 6. That's going to be something. That is a single. So a single by Lopes. Base hit allowed by Mingiori. He's allowed a lot of base runners for the time he's been out there. And then Bill Russell gets a 6-6, which is a single with no asterisk. At this point, the Dodgers aren't going to press the issue. They've already probably got this game in the bag. And Reggie Smith is up. He gets a 6-10, which is a fly ball center field B. Fly out to 8. No runs for LA, and now Kansas City needs 8 runs right here in the top of the 9th to tie the game and keep playing. Darrell Porter's up, and he gets a 1-12, which is a line out into as many outs as possible to second base. Line out to 4. Brings up Al Cowens. He gets a 5-7, which is a ground ball to, it's a fly ball center field B. That's 2 away. And Frank White comes up, and he gets a 5-2, which is a pop out to first. Pop out to 4, or to 3 again, 3. And so no runs for Kansas City there, and they do lose game 2 by the score of 8-0. The win goes to Bert Hooten, who goes the entire distance, and the loss goes to Splittorff, who really pitched better than what the line score here would show. But nevertheless, he did lose the game. In fact, if he had just given up 1 run, it would have been a loss. But That's your score. So here we are in the 1978 World Series. We are now heading to Kansas City for Game 3 after this, tied at 1 game apiece. So you guys know the drill. Here's my contact information. If you like that video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down. If you want to see more videos when they come out and make sure that you don't miss anything, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. And leave a comment below if you want, or contact me at any of my contact information points, and I will be sure to address your comments. I always like to hear what everyone's got to say and to respond back. But for right now, it's Sportsman Z, Bob Zuhlke, signing off.